Gumaling, an Aboriginal word referring to a possum. This town of about 1,100 people is located 45 kilometers northeast of Duidgee. It's a little larger than most wheat belt towns and is a busy service center for the wheat industry. Google indicates that there were frequent newspaper reports prior to 1900. Many reports dealt with the prospectors' trail to the gold fields and the need for good roads and later a railway. An early settler, George Slater, contributed regularly to the West. He opened the first hotel in Gumaling for the prospectors flowing through the area. Good wells and a water source in Gumaling made it a necessary stopping point for early travelers. Early farming reports on Gumaling were generally optimistic, and Gumaling remains a major wheat growing area. The town started to take off with the completion of a railway link in 1902. The railway was the result of frequent agitation by settlers in the newspaper. Reports indicated a good market for wheat, but farmers unable to take advantage of it because of poor roads. From Gumaling, the railway was extended northwards to Wongan Hills in 1911 and later through to Malawa by 1915. Branch Railway was opened to Darwin by 1906 and eventually to Meriden in 1911. The early steam locomotives were always a magnet for bystanders. Horse-drawn wagons delivered bags of wheat to the sidings. No doubt these sidings were the center of community interaction where people caught up with friends. With large wheat bins in Gumaling, the railway remains important. The farmers' fields are a lush green during the winter months, turning to a golden brown during the spring. It's fascinating to view the mosaic created by contour plowing across the landscape. John Bentley, an employee of Charles Slater, cleared a large field and asked to be buried there. Most buildings in Gumaling are fairly modern, but the hotel does date back to 1902. The shape of the wheat silos in Gumaling are unique, perhaps to the southern hemisphere, and are affectionately called Duidgee Parks. Oak Park is a popular recreational area for settlers of Gumaling. The Slater homestead is now a heritage site and is well worth visiting. A frightening article about a Duidgee snake creeping into a child's bed, with unfortunately fatal results. Like the early prospectors, we move on the discovery pathway from Gumaling. Toodyeep, the Aboriginals called it the place of plenty. Settlers discovered the Toodyeep area in the 1830s, and by the 1850s there were 3 inns, 2 schools, as well as a jail. Today it's only 85 kilometers from Perth and a popular tourist destination. In the 1850s though, it was quite isolated and travel to Perth was difficult. Nevertheless, numerous letters appeared in the West Australian. An early 1876 map showing the main exploration and travel routes extending out from Perth, with a principal route to Toodyeep and another to York. The gold rush favor of the goldfields near Coogardie and Kalgoorlie passed Toodyeep by. Toodyeep, located 86 kilometers northeast of Perth, has a population of about 800 people, probably 1,000 people on the weekend with all the tourists. It's situated between 2 large hills, and the town is stretched along the riverbank of the Avon River. In Toodyeep, you're never out of sight of the country. Be warned though, although the town is small, it's well spread out and it takes some time to walk around. The town of Duidgee grew and still grows from the agricultural activities of the early settlers, such as sheep, cattle, wheat, barley, vines, and beekeeping. It's also the site of many elderly residents from Perth who retire in Duidgee to enjoy the pleasant rural setting and beautiful country scenery. Being the oldest inland settlement in the state, Duidgee is a heritage site, well worth wandering around. There's a fine collection of heritage buildings dating back to the late 1800s, and the National Trust has declared the whole town as a heritage site. Most of the older buildings have been finely painted and preserved and are open for tourists to view and shop in. There's the old goal dating back to the 1850s, St. Stephen's Church built in 1862, and the O'Connor Mill dating to 1870. My visit in early December 2008 involved a small trip outside of town to the Duidgee Caravan Park, where we spent a night overlooking the Avon River. Duidgee is well signposted with memorials, this one to the early pioneers. A Google News search indicates as many articles about Duidgee in Perth's papers during the 1800s as during most of the 20th century. It's only in the 21st that the volume increased. The shops at Duidgee are a lot of fun. They are historic, dating back into the 1800s. The churches are also historic, with this newspaper article about the Duidgee Catholic Parish built in the mid-1850s and St. Stephen's built in 1862. Don't forget a visit to the post office, done in Public Works classic design. The public library in Duidgee was done in a unique type of architecture for that era. My friend Jamie Scott and myself pop into the Victoria Hotel for a pint of beer. The upper right window features public services in Duidgee, including the Memorial Hall and the old courtroom, as well as the pit. There's lots of historic housing in Duidgee. The oldest house in Duidgee is the Butterley House, constructed in 1870. The Commonwealth Bank and the local photographer also inhabit interesting buildings. Connor's Mill was built in 1870 and has gone through several reincarnations. It even served as a power generation plant for Duidgee for a period of time. In the 1850s, much of the public works in Duidgee was done by convict labor. Here's the old convict depot where settlers could hire their convicts. The Duidgee Jail or Gaol was constructed during the 1860s. The center of life in Duidgee has always been the Avon River, which is very dry during the summer, but floods and overflows its banks during the winter. The Avon Descent is an exciting winter event held annually. Have a look in at the model railway.